I just walk up, so
That's
we'll
right.
do that. So, all right, welcome back. My name is Billy Dooley. I'm with Coach Dooley's List, and today I have the great pleasure of sitting up here with Coach Matt Hornsby of Bowdon softball. I do appreciate you meeting with us today.
Yes, sir.
We kind of turned a little bit. My mom always told me when she watches these that we're supposed to turn towards each other.
Yeah,
So she doesn't want to see the side of my face, but today I'm going to stare at the beauty that God has given us today. And I'll let you get started, Coach. I once again appreciate you being on with us. So tell us a little bit about your coaching journey. I know it's your first year at Bowdon, but where all you been? How did you get here?
Right out of college in 2009, I got my first job at Heard County right out of college, and went there to be assistant baseball coach. And about a month in, they told me that they needed somebody to coach wrestling as well. I'd never been to a wrestling meet in my life.
Okay.
Until the one that we coached in that fall, and I say coached lightly. But after that, coached baseball there that first spring, and then after that, just the head softball coach at the time had stepped down, and I'd actually asked to or interviewed for the head coaching job. Really, just want some head coach experience before planning on taking a head baseball job down the road, and really just fell in love with softball. And I had to choose these days, I think I probably know what the answer would be there. So, so for the last 15 years, I'd been the softball coach at Heard, and like you said, it's we're heading to Bowdon, so we're excited and ready to get rocking and rolling.
It's a good place. My mother-in-law taught at Bowdon for 32 years, I think.
I remember you mentioned
that. And awesome. So it's a really good place. And one of the questions I always ask coaches, what is your program known for? What do you want it to be known for? Now, I've only played you one time.
Yes, sir.
And y'all put it on us, and we had a really good team. But I've seen y'all play a lot. Being down at Columbus, we've always communicated. And I know one of the things I always noticed about your teams was how well prepared they were. And what I mean by that was just whatever the game called for. Stealing a base, getting a bunt down, all that kind of stuff. Like, your teams were always super prepared. So, but I'd steal your thunder. But what is it that you want, especially now taking over a new program? What is it you're trying to instill? What do you want Bowdon softball to be known for?
No, that exactly what you just said is we try our best to never be surprised by anything in the game, and if we are, we try to learn from it, and sometimes we even steal it, and put it back in our program to help us down the road. But we're going to try to prepare our girls for every situation that could possibly happen, and hopefully try to get to a high level of execution with that, and really get to the point to where other teams actually have to come beat us, instead of us ever being in a position to beat ourselves, or handing them a game away that we should have won, that we just weren't prepared for a certain situation. Now, having said that, we're going to play a tough non-region schedule to try to. That's the reason came up there and played all y'all jokers up around Atlanta and let y'all put it on us for the most part.
That didn't happen.
We would we would rather try to be exposed as early as possible in the season by playing better teams, and but as far as what I would like for us to be known for, just playing with class for one. But also just being tough as nails, just knowing that, that when you go to play, Heard County in the past or Bowdon moving forward, that they're come ready to play or it's not going to go well for you, kind of deal. And it does take a lot of preparation to get to that point. But I feel like once the girls have gotten a taste of that over the years, then they take it and run with it more than we would. So.
Oh, absolutely. And you talk about preparation, and it's easy to have confidence and run through a wall when you know what's coming. And I will say this, and hopefully your phone doesn't blow up in October for this. You give the best scouting reports I've ever gotten in 20 years of coaching. I remember you told me something one time, it was about her little sister or something like that. And I said, and I jotted it down, and I told my coaches, I said, if we look at any scouting report, it needs to be this one right here. And I love that. So and all your preparation, all your time at Herd, now here at Bowdon, and what's one coaching story that sticks out that makes you smile or makes you laugh? What's one of your favorite coaching stories?
I don't know if I have just one specific story. I would say that one of the teams that I'm most proud of, I'll say, is we were able to win the title in 2014. Had a lot of really, really good players on that team, and then had another really good group come through years later, and they ended up being loaded as well. Had 5 of those girls that started as freshmen, and they won it their junior and senior year.
Right.
And then you had all those girls graduate. I think we graduated 6 starters, and nobody really gave us a chance. If I'm being real honest, they'd come up and say, "Well, how y'all going to be next year?" But I knew what they were asking. It's how bad are y'all going to be next year is what they were really wanting to say. They were just being respectful. And I just remember telling everybody then that we've got a lot of really good players coming back. We've just never seen them play in games before.
Right.
They've been really good practice players, and I will say that was a credit to our girls and their parents then. We had a lot of girls on the bench that would have been starters at a lot of other schools in our area.
Yep.
And they chose to stay. They chose to, buy into the program. They, and a lot of them, it was their senior year before they started. And, you looked up in October and they went and won a 3rd straight title. And like I said, most of those girls had never been a starter at all. They'd been base runners or pinch hitters. They'd been role players. And, that kind of, when you look back on it, not to pat our coaches or anything like that on the back, because that has nothing to do with us, but just looking back lets you know that we were doing something right. That for one, that those girls stayed,
right?
That they, had the character and the values in their parents too, who didn't complain about playing time, over the years, because they could have. I mean, they were very good players. Several of them went to play college ball and didn't, end up starting until their senior year. But they went and won a 3rd straight title, and nobody really gave them any chance to, do that heading into the season. And I will say that team wasn't very good in August. There was a lot of lumps and kind of filling out. Girls having to grow up in a hurry. But like I said, they were good players. They were good athletes. They just needed a little experience under their belt. But it was awesome just seeing that group achieve what they achieved when not many people gave them a chance going in.
Oh, those are the most dangerous teams for sure.
They are.
And I always hear the stories about the ones that, they really had to work for it or they stuck around. And, and that's all about, what you build. And I know too, coaches don't give themselves credit, but that's all just, just the years that you put in and over time and, just what those kids believe in for you. What's one piece of advice, in all your years in head coaching? If somebody said, "Hey, I think I want to be a head coach," what's a piece of advice you would give to somebody who's thinking about trying to become one?
Always look in the mirror. Always self-reflect throughout the year, after the year, heading into the next year. There are things that we do now in our program intentionally that 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I wouldn't have done, because I thought we were doing the right thing 10, 12 years ago. And there are things from 10 or 12 years ago that we intentionally do not do in our program anymore, because it just wasn't the right way to do things.
Right.
As a young, dumb coach, thinking that my way's the highway, and if you don't like it, there's the gate kind of deal. Better ways to do things.
Coaches got to grow up too.
You do, and you always hear about the relationships with the players and all that. You can coach them hard and still be close with them and once they get to that level, they'll play a heck of a lot harder for you than they ever would you just trying to tell them what to do just because you're in charge. And looking back, I've always, I've told some parents this, in Herd County over the years is, we won it in 14, but we had a really good team in 2012 and 13 as well, and even 15. And, sometimes I just look back and just wonder if some of the things that me being young and dumb, that I was dead set on doing at the time. I thought it was right at the time. I thought it was the right thing for our team and for our program at the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wonder, looking back, if I didn't cost those girls another title. Just certain things that we have in place about accountability. We're huge on accountability. If I always tell our pitchers, I'm going to ask the catcher when a ball gets hit hard, did you hit your spot? Yep. I'm not wanting them to throw you under the bus. I want them to know, did you miss your spot and I can call that pitch again and you execute the pitch, or did you execute it and I don't need to call it again. That's right. On me, we always use the example, if, a ball gets hammered to shortstop and she boots it, everybody in the stands, in both dugouts are blaming the shortstop for making the error. Nobody looks at the pitcher. Did she hit her spot, or did she leave it over the plate?
Meatball.
Yeah, did that ball get hit a lot harder than it should have?
Right.
And, so we always talk about accountability, that, something like that were to happen, our pitchers need to turn around and, and acknowledge that to your shortstop. And, it just gets to where people end up taking ownership of stuff that wasn't their fault as well, which also makes them play harder for each other.
Absolutely.
Just always self-reflect, always learning, go to the clinics, listen to the other guys that have, gone before you, that, have been doing a heck of a lot longer.
You're not that young anymore.
Well, I know.
No, but I know what you mean, especially
my hair's short, all this gray hair that's been rolling in the last few years, so.
No, and I know what you mean. Like, you're trying to find those people, and I think that's been a common theme. A lot of the coaches I've talked to lately is surrounding yourself, with people, whether it's not just on your staff, which is always great to have. And I know you've always had great coaches with you.
And that's the one thing I was going to say, is that you're never going to be able to take the next step in your program until you get assistant coaches that align with your thoughts, but also have that skill set of the knowledge of the game, the fun, how to teach the fundamentals, but also being able to relate to players as well.
Right.
That was really, 10 or so years ago, when it all started. When we finally got, some of those coaches in place, is really when we saw our, program at Herd really start to trend upward. There's a big difference to where you've got 3 or 4 position coaches that I can trust you to take the infielders, or corner infielders, and so is going to take the middle infielders. I'm going to take the outfielders, and he's going to take our catchers. Meanwhile, you got your pitching coach that's going to grab your pitchers, and just being able to trust that the right things are being taught, and you're not having to oversee everything all the time. You got to have those guys in place to be successful.
Oh yeah, and you know that too. It makes your job easier.
It does,
because when you feel like, and this in the beginning, you felt like you had to oversee everything.
No,
and then when you finally trust them.
Well, that was the thing. Is the first couple of years, yes, and a lot of it was me not being very trusting, and Mondays and Wednesdays I would go work with outfielders, and Tuesdays and Thursdays I would switch and go work with infielders, and it was just because I wanted it taught the way I wanted it taught, and not always trusting that they're going to teach it, the way it should as well. Right. You're not the only one that can teach it that way, and who knows, their way may end up being better. And listen to your assistant coaches. There have been plenty of times over the years that I was dead set on doing something as the head coach, and yes, would I always have the final say? Sure, but if I had 2 assistant coaches that were both dead set on doing something different, I'm going to go with what they want to do.
Yep.
Because clearly they're seeing something that I'm not right now, and I'm just going to trust that I'm missing it right now. And then go from there. And it just builds trust amongst your staff as well.
No, I totally agree, because I actually had a situation late in my career where my assistant coaches called me out. This was late. This wasn't early in my career, where they called me out because they said I wasn't listening to them. And we all kind of individually sat down and talked, but I think it was the reason, and I was thankful for it. I definitely was, because it showed me some things, and we were better for it later on. But, if you have those conversations throughout the year, preseason, that kind of stuff, it definitely, because, in the game, you can't have a discussion. Like
No.
you got 15 seconds to call the next pitch or whatever, and be ready to go.
I agree.
This wasn't a question, but one thing I've thought about lately is coaches in I don't really love the word burnout, but you get coaches that kind of leave and they get stressed out about things, and so I've really talked to a lot of coaches lately and said, look, you gotta find something else to do away from that. So in your free time, what do you like to do?
Well, it's funny you asked that. You told me that you wouldn't do one of these sit downs unless we were in a deer stand, and I appreciate you asking that, because I know there's going to be some guys, like Brandon Jenkins, some of those guys.
Who's that?
Brandon Jenkins, that are real big hunters. That he's probably going to be jealous that he wasn't the first one to be able to do this sit down with you in a deer stand. But
I love this.
I mean, you've got to have something outside of softball or baseball, whatever it may be. And for me, it is hunting, or now that the kids are getting older, it's taking them hunting and
I love that.
just seeing, we can go and just see a handful of deer and just the look on their faces, they think it's the coolest thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, for me, it's they know that my personal days are going to be submitted for this first couple of weeks in November, and I'm going to be out of town for a little while, but no, it keeps me sane. That's my wife doesn't understand. Well, she does understand it, but she's like,
Jody, come sit right here.
Did you see anything today? I'm like, no, it didn't. She's like, golly, you gonna move spots? I know,
Trust the process.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just coming out here and getting everything off your mind. It does enough for me. I don't have to see anything or kill anything. If you do, it's even better. But
it's hard to be mad when the sun comes up in a deer stand and the world wakes up with you.
I agree, man. It's the coolest thing on earth, and
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing to look around and see what God's done, and you get a lot of conversations with the Lord when you're in the deer stand by yourself as well. So
mm-hmm.
it's needed all the way around. So
I love it. Well, one of the big things, obviously, behind Coach Dooley's list and the website is connecting coaches with vendors. So give me a couple of vendors that you love that you would shout out to other coaches and say, I love working with them.
Yeah. One that, worked with for years is Dusty Peppers.
Mm-hmm.
Now has Pep Athletic Solutions. He's always been great for us. He doesn't live remotely close to here, but if I ever ask him, if I shoot him a text on a Monday, he'll be there by Thursday or Friday,
awesome.
Sitting in front of you. He's always been good about that. And now that, making the transition to Bowdon, been introduced to Jody Nichole's Closet, which is
mm-hmm.
in Bowdon there. She's local, but she's getting a lot of business around West Georgia, and just her turnaround time has been awesome. We went in there just with our family just to go get some Bowdon gear when I first took the job, and they made all the shirts and everything right there in front of us while we were looking around. Yeah, I mean, it was a blank red or black shirt, and we left there with all the logos and everything.
I love it.
One of the boys found a hat that he liked, and one of our other boys wanted a hat, but it didn't have the Bowdon B on it. She said, well, I can put that on it for you if you
just
got
right there.
5 minutes. She went back there and stitched it up, and away we went. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, she's been awesome for us. But
yeah, and both of those, Dusty Peppers and Jody Nichole's, are on the website, and awesome. Were highly recommended by coaches across the state. So, yes, well, sir. Coach, listen, we're going to turn this off, but I may sit here for a little while the sun goes down.
Yes, sir.
But I really do appreciate it. Wish y'all nothing but the best at Bowdon.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it.